Hey there, C-Sharpers. My name's Matthew, and I'm the C-Sharp Artisan. And this is the second video in my new series on AI. And this one I'm calling Postcard from Code, Fall 2024. So this week I got to attend a really cool conference up in Denver. And the full title is Code Magazine Presents The State of AI, Generating Real Business Value with AI. So before I get into the content that we covered, I just want to give a little plug for the Code Magazine folks. These guys do really great work. And part of their mission is educational. So I'll put a link in the chat and you can go look at their magazine and maybe subscribe. Their conferences are usually free. So there's just a lot of really great educational opportunities with Code Magazine. They also have a staffing wing. So if you happen to be looking for a new challenge, they're a good group of people to reach out to. And of course, they do custom software consulting. So maybe that's something you need. Anyway, thank you very much for the great guys at Code Magazine and for a great event. And so now I want to go through my basic top 5 takeaways from this in terms of the state of the art, where things are at, and how to unlock real business value with AI. But before I do those 5 takeaways from the event, I've actually got takeaway number 0, which is this. So a couple weeks ago, I recorded the first video on AI where I covered RAG, the question, what is RAG? And I felt like I was kind of going out on a limb. If you've watched my other videos, you know that, first of all, I like to make really sure that I know what I'm talking about. I don't want to put useless or inaccurate content out there. And if I make a mistake, I'm totally open to, putting out a correction. And some of you actually have responded, and it's given me a chance to do follow-up videos. So when I did that video on RAG, I felt a little wobbly, actually, because I'm not an AI expert. I'm kind of new to this. And I thought, boy, I really hope I'm getting this right. And this conference up in Denver, it confirmed that I don't think I was spouting total nonsense in that video. I actually feel pretty good about what I presented. And so if you haven't had a chance, go check it out, and maybe it'll answer some of your questions about what RAG is and that pattern of software development with AI. Okay, so now my top 5 takeaways from the Code Conference. I've got some notes here, so let me refer to them. All right, so the first question that was brought up and that people talked about is what are people actually doing with AI in business these days? There's a lot of buzz around large language models. There's a lot of new tools. What kind of projects are people actually legitimately implementing? And it does appear that these RAG-enabled copilots really are the best place to start. So if you're considering getting into doing some AI development and you've got a client that you're working with or a product that you're wanting to enhance, it does seem like adding a copilot is the low-hanging fruit, is the proper point of entry. And the Marcus Egger, who's the founder and CEO of Code, he had some great quotes. I didn't write them down exactly. I'll just paraphrase them. But basically, he said, any app, regardless of almost any platform or language or technology that was used to develop it, can add a copilot, because all you really need to be able to do is make a REST API call. So he's definitely cheerleading for this and wanting everybody to take a look at adding a copilot to the app. And he also said something to the effect of, if you're not adding AI capabilities to your app, you're falling behind. So he doesn't want to generate FOMO as much as just let people know there's a huge opportunity here to enhance your product, and you should know that your competition probably is doing this. So that was thing 1. Look at these RAG-enabled copilots. So the second concept is a little more technical, which is there's this distinction between RAG and model fine-tuning. So both of these techniques, retrieval augmented generation and model fine-tuning, which I suppose we could call MUFT if we're looking for an acronym, so RAG and MUFT, they both achieve the same kind of end result, which is they tweak the results that you get back from the LLM. Instead of just sending the prompt to the LLM and getting its responses, they allow you to adapt it. And they do this in different ways. So the purpose of RAG is to adapt the response so that it is aware of your specific knowledge and content. So you're adding like internal documents or other bits of knowledge and content to the search so that the LLM can incorporate that in the response. So it tailors the response to be specific to your knowledge base and domain. Model fine-tuning does something very different. I mean, you can use model fine-tuning to achieve that, but it's kind of an expensive and laborious way to do it when RAG really is tailor-made for that. So what is model fine-tuning used for? And what I got from this is it's really about tweaking the actual model itself so that it can speak a little more in a certain voice or tone. It's about tweaking not the content of the response, but the tone of the response. So remember, when you submit a prompt to an LLM, it's really doing two things for you. Now, its primary job is it is a text generator. It's really good at generating natural language text. The other thing that they're pretty good about is knowing stuff because they've been trained on actual knowledge. So those two purposes get mixed together, getting accurate content as well as getting it presented in a natural, easy to read, human kind of way. So RAG is for tweaking the content and model fine tuning is for adjusting the tone of the language output. Now, it should be said, you're not actually retraining the underlying LLM model itself. To do that, as several of the conference presenters pointed out, you would need $450 million 6 months in a data center. And most of us don't have that laying around. So what it does is it actually allows you to add sort of a layer sitting on top of that. And there's some terms, LoRa, right? A low rank adapter, which is, again, I'm not going to get into the math. I'm not qualified to talk about it, but basically it's a way to kind of tweak the weights and tweak, tweak the weights in the model so that it produces a more tailored result. So it speaks in the tone or voice or style that you want. So that's this really important distinction that I think is going to come up going forward, the difference between RAG and model fine-tuning. Okay, number 3. This is like different ways to do the the retrieval step in RAG. And they talked about and showed actually a couple of fairly different ways of doing it, which is really interesting. There's not just one way to do the retrieval. So if your knowledge base that you want to retrieve from, if it is very specific and it is amenable to essentially a key terms search, where there are specific terms that you can text match on, you can actually build just a very simple text search index, right? With nothing fancy at all, where you can just pick out documents or articles from that knowledge base that contain certain key terms. And depending on the domain and the documents, that might work and it might save you a lot of time. So you don't have to invest a whole lot in expensive indexing. You can do really simple full text indexing and then search against that index to do the retrieval step. Now, if what you're wanting is something that is a little more meaning and context based, where just a simple key term search isn't going to cut it, then in Azure, there's some really simple ways for you to do a vectorized search. And you can just essentially drop your documents into this tool that will then allow you to, on Azure, do vectorized search. Now, you're going to pay for it, right? It's more complicated. You have to load your documents in, and you're going to pay for blob storage, and you're going to pay for computation. But what you'll get is a retrieval step that is based on these vector searches, which is more meaning-based. The third technique they demonstrated, which I really liked and got my imagination going, is using a SQL database. So many of us have these amazing SQL databases that contain lots of structured information about all kinds of things, our customers, our transactions, like whatever your domain is, and that you can build a data dictionary that an LLM can use to generate a SQL prompt. So this becomes a multi-step process. First, you use the LLM in conjunction with the data dictionary to actually generate a SQL statement. Then you issue the SQL command against your database, and that's the R step. That gives you a set of ranked SQL results. Then you take those SQL results, that's the R, and you augment your prompt. And then you get a natural language response, which essentially refers to information and knowledge that's in a SQL database. So I want to try all of these out. And I'm actually hoping in videos to come that I'll be able to kind of hoist up some little proof of concepts using the Azure Dev Tools, ML Studio, and C#, and just kind of get this going and see what it's like. That may take a little bit, but if we can get there, I think it'll be really useful to me and hopefully to you. So that was number 3. So the next one, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but there was a fair amount of discussion about security, data governance and security, and how that applies to a RAG pattern. So again, imagining you're implementing this RAG-enabled copilot, and it's going to do an initial retrieval step against your documents or your SQL data, and it's going to use that to customize the output. Well, if you have a security layer, like who has the ability to see what content and documents in your organization, if you have a security layer sitting on top of those documents or that database, you can't then subvert it by allowing your RAG engine to just go in, grab whatever it wants, and then show that to the user. You have to respect all of your data governance and data security in the R step. And I'm not going to go into technical details, but it essentially means somehow replicating that or applying that in the R step. And this could be as simple as including that information in the index so that when the R step happens, it only pulls documents that the current user is able to see. But it's something really important to think about. So if you're considering doing a RAG-based copilot, don't create a massive backdoor that subverts all of your organization's data governance and security. And so the last thing I want to talk about, spend a little more time on, is testing and quality with these LLM-based AI solutions. So the fundamental concept here is that the results of an LLM are not deterministic. You issue a prompt, you can't guarantee the response. There are lots of reasons that go into that, but basically you can't write your basic, like NUnit unit tests against this. There is no assert dot makes sense or assert dot my LLM isn't hallucinating or something like that. Now, I'm a huge fan of automated tests, and I've got this very long video series on how to use C# and NUnit to do unit testing and automated test. But these applications really challenge that. So how are you going to test the quality of your solution and make sure it is returning the results you want, that it's not hallucinating or lying or being weird? So one thing is, like, there is no silver bullet for this. It's definitely an emerging kind of thing. But what I gathered from the speakers at Code is this. The first thing you want to do is log everything. So whenever you issue a request to an LLM as part of this process, you want to record the prompt, you want to record the LLM you were using, you want to record what came back, if you modified or augmented the prompt or did any prompt engineering, you want to get the before and the after, get the response back. So log every single round trip, log it all. But that's not really good enough. I mean, you then could build some process where somehow you go and like spot check or look through and check. But at scale, that a human can't really do that. So what you need to do, and they didn't really say this explicitly, it's just kind of something I inferred, is you need to give the recipient of the result, that is the end user, the ability to rate, rank, and score and respond to the quality of the response. Like, you replied back to them. You have to tell them, okay, this, first of all, notify them, this was generated by an AI, LLM, and then give them some way to say, that was good, that was bad, that met my needs, that was incorrect, that was incoherent, right? Some way to let them be your QA tester. Now, of course, people may reply inaccurately or they may fail to reply, but you have to try. So these two techniques in combination, where you are logging everything and then also making a good faith effort to get feedback from the actual end users, is the key then, because now you have a log that will tell you if things are going sideways, or if you make a change, for example, to your prompt engineering or your, something you've done, if you use a different model, or if you use some different text in the prompt engineering, or you tweak the RAG algorithm. If you've done any of those things, in theory, that should eventually show up, and you should know whether you made things better or worse with the change. So it is not deterministic. It is not quite as bomb-proof and scientific as other kinds of automated tests can be, but we have to make an effort, right? We can't just throw these things out there and hope that they behave. So the last little technique, I had never thought of this, is in your application, as a QA step within your code, you can actually ask the LLM to check itself. And I think we've probably seen this if you used a chatbot where you ask a question, it replies back, and you can say, are you sure about that? Or that doesn't sound right. Or what did you mean by blah? And very often the chatbots will be, whoa, yeah, you're right. I made a mistake there. It's really interesting. So you can do the same thing. And you could say, like, issue a follow-on request, say to the LLM, does this look right to you? Answer me yes or no, or is this accurate? And maybe then log that response and get the LLM itself to kind of score the quality of its own replies. So that should get you thinking a little bit. All right, my top 5. Again, thank you so much to the guys at Code. I loved the day, and I'm looking forward to what you all have next. And for the rest of you, stay sharp.